Hello, viewers and learners. In the series that we have started on international relations theory, today I am going to discuss with you liberalism in international relations. Liberalism is also, like realism, one of the key contributions in the field of IR. It is one of the two great philosophical products of the European Enlightenment. Liberalism has had a profound impact on the shape of all modern industrial societies. So, whatever modern industrial societies that you see from Europe to elsewhere, there you will find a lot of impact of liberalism, not only on their political system, but also on their society, on their economic system, even on their culture. It has championed limited government and scientific rationality. So liberalism give importance to limited government. It means that the government or the powers of the government should be balanced. They should not be, unrestrained powers to the state. And liberalism also give importance to scientific rationality. That scientific rationality should be the basis of judging what is right and what is wrong. It also believes that individuals, they should be free from the arbitrary powers of the state, any kind of prosecution by any authority, or like they should also be free from superstitions. It has been advocated political freedom. So liberalism, it supports political freedom, democracy, and constitutionally guaranteed rights, and privileged the liberty of the individual and equality before the law. So these are some of the cherished values of liberalism, that liberalism gives importance to political freedom of each and every state. Liberalism prefer democracy as a political system. Liberalism also advocate that people they should be given some constitutionally guaranteed rights. You can even call them fundamental rights. And liberalism also believe that individuals, they should have not only just the freedom and liberty, but they should also be equal before the law. So all the people in the eyes of law, they should be same and they should be treated similarly. Nobody should be above the law. Liberalism has also argued for individual competition in civil society and claimed that market capitalism best promotes the welfare of all by most efficiently allocating scarce resources within society. So here there are 3-4 things which liberal scholars mainly argues. One, that individual, they should compete, and whosoever excel in that competition, they should not just sustain but also flourish. Second thing is, they believe that market-based capitalism, it best promote not only individual capabilities, but it can also become an instrument of ensuring welfare in the society. Another thing is that they also believe that market can also help in allocating scarce resources within the society. To the extent that its ideas have been realized in recent democratic transitions in both hemispheres and manifested in the globalization of the world economy, liberalism is a powerful and influential doctrine. So around the world you see the impact of liberalism, and you have also must have heard terms like liberal international order or liberal democracies, etc. In international relations, it has been seen as a historic alternative to realism. So realism, that was the most dominant school of thought in the field of international relations. Liberalism here seen as a historic alternative. So time and again liberal scholars, they have tried to balance the arguments and key assertions of realist scholars, and they have their own viewpoints. So here they disagree with the worldview of realist scholars. Here they also disagree with the assertions of realist scholars regarding human nature or regarding the structure of international system, etc. If we have to define liberalism as such, there is no very well defined definition of liberalism. But here we'll try to understand it through a 4-dimensional definition of liberalism. The first part of it is that all the citizens are juridically equal and possess certain basic rights to education, access to free press, and religious toleration. Second is the legislative assembly of the state possesses only the authority invested in it by the people whose basic rights it is not permitted to abuse. Here, the meaning basically is that if we talk about the state power, so state derives its power from the people, and state is also accountable not only to the constitution or constitutional obligation, state is also accountable directly to the people, and state cannot abuse its powers against the people itself. Third is, it is a key dimension of the liberty of the individual is the right to own property. So one of the key dimension of liberty of every individual is the right to own property, and also it also include productive forces. So liberalism gave lot of emphasis, among the rights, liberalism gave lot of emphasis on the right to property. This particular aspect was highlighted by John Locke. It was also highlighted by J.S. Mill, etc. So they believe that individual property or the right to acquire property, it is even a natural right, which is not subject to state control. Fourth thing is, liberalism contends that the most effective system of economic exchange is one that is largely market driven and not one that is subordinate to bureaucratic regulation and control, either domestically or internationally. Here the meaning is that liberal scholars, they are of the opinion that the best system of economic exchange, it should be guided by the market. So state should have a minimal intervention in that, and market should decide the norms, terms, conditions, etc. of exchange, and it should not be left to state bureaucracy to bring some rules and regulation to control the flow of either, say, money, material resources, etc. And it should be done both at the domestic level and also at the international level. Now, when we look at the liberalism, sometimes we find that there is a stark contrast in liberal values. So when we look around the states and the values that liberal states have emphasized, then we find that there are sometimes a lot of contradiction. For example, liberalism emphasized both individualism and community. Now, both of these two values are seen in contradiction to each other, but liberalism emphasized on both. Another important contradiction that we can see is in freedom and order. So liberalism wants to give every individual freedom and liberties, but simultaneously it also emphasized that order should be maintained. Liberalism also gives importance to modernism and conservatism, and that is the reason that even in modern democratic states you also find political parties that support conservatism. Liberalism also gives importance to liberty, but simultaneously it also highlights the importance of tolerance and equality. So liberalism, or in other words, like if we want to see it from a different angle, then we can say that liberal scholars, they have tried to counterbalance some of the rights that it wishes to give to individuals so that a balanced and harmonious society can be built. A critical appraisal of this fourfold definition that was presented here, liberalism, it seems, is pulling in two directions. One, its commitment to freedom in the economic and social sphere leans in the direction of a minimalist role for governing institutions. It means, it seems, that liberalism emphasized that state power, it should be balanced, it should be checked, state should not have unrestrained powers, and liberal scholars seems that they are preferring a state that has a limited role to play. Particularly in the field of economy, they want that the state power should be restrained. Second thing is, the democratic political culture required for basic freedoms to be safeguarded requires robust and interventionist institutions. So here liberalism emphasized that institutions, they should also be, they should have enough powers or enough control so that they could maintain that democratic political culture, and so that they can also enforce some of the basic rights and freedoms in the society. Sometimes we even confuse between liberalism and idealism. So here there is some brief clarification so that you can distinguish between the two. Idealism is seen as the precursor of liberalism. Second important thing is that both stood for the same set of values, but idealism is naive about the practicality and implementation of its values and beliefs. Some of the values and beliefs of ideal scholars, they are too idealistic to be even real, and that is the reason that idealism is sometimes also referred as utopian, which is not practical. Liberalism is comparatively more systematic, it is comparatively more pragmatic, and that is the reason that you see a mix of both liberal theory and practice in the society. Liberalism and idealism, they both emphasized on the question of war and peace. Liberal scholars also, they have tried to find out the reasons or the causes of war. Some scholars, they believe that liberalism itself is an interwar phenomenon. It means that liberalism, in the field of at least international relations, it emerged as a dominant school of thought during the interwar period between World War I and World War II. Liberal scholars, they have agreed with realists that war is a recurring feature of the anarchic state system. Here there is a similarity that they both agree that international system, it is not very well ordered, and wars are something which is a recurring feature of international system. So throughout history, if you see, then war kept on take places, at different times countries, they kept on fighting with each other. But unlike realist scholars, they do not identify anarchy as the only cause of war. Another important thing is that when liberal scholars, they have tried to explore the causes of war, they reached on the conclusion that some other factors can be held responsible for war. One of the important factor is imperialism. So during 19th century and 20th century, you have seen a lot of clashes around the world. Imperial powers, they fought with each other. Because of the competition and struggle between these imperialist powers, World War I and World War II takes place. Liberal scholars also believe that wars also takes place if the balance of power get failed. So failure of the balance of power can also be attributed as one of the key causes, key reasons for the beginning or the outbreak of war. So balance of power, it should be maintained if anybody is willing to prevent the wars. Liberal scholars also believe that undemocratic regimes or say autocratic regimes can also be blamed for the initiation or beginning of wars and conflict because they have no internal pressures. They have no pressure of their political system, they have no constitutional obligations, they have no domestic accountabilities, there are no restraint or control, they are not accountable even to their own people. So undemocratic regime can also be held responsible for the outbreak of wars. Liberal scholars, they have also tried to find out some of the possible solution of this problem of war. And the solutions that they have suggested is, they believe that collective security can play an important role in preventing the wars. Through collective security, you can deter any aggressor. There should be a common consensus that peace should be maintained, and anybody who violate that consensus among states, all the states have this responsibility to deter that aggressor. Second important thing is that liberal scholars believe that commerce or say trade, it can also help in preventing wars because trade brings interdependencies. Trade make countries dependent on each other. trade also leads to material interest, and countries they generally never able to come out of or can overlook as such their material economic interest. Another important possible solution that they have suggested is a world government, although it seems too impractical that it is even viable. But when we look at the European Union, we can say that if the states are willing and if they have some kind of common consensus or like how they want to see a common future, then this possibility is also there. Now here you can also see a graph where some of the scholars of liberalism, some of the figures and what they have to say about the causes of conflicts and what could be the determinants of peace. So that you can see here in the first image, it emphasized on human nature or say human beings. And the scholar associated with it is Richard Cobden in the mid-19th century. His observations are that the primary causes of conflicts are the interventions by governments, domestically and internationally, that disturb the natural order. So if there will be no interventions both domestically and internationally, then possibly that natural order where peace prevails can be maintained. Now, how to maintain the peace or what could be the possible solution of it? Or what could be the determinants of peace? So Richard Cobden says that individual liberty, free trade, prosperity and interdependence, it can prevent wars and help in maintaining peace. Second image that you can see is of the state. So how we can view the state from the prism, from the angle of liberalism. So here the public figure or the scholars who is associated with this state-centric thing is Woodrow Wilson in early 20th century. According to him, the causes of conflicts are undemocratic nature of international politics. So here Woodrow Wilson emphasized on democracies or democratizations, especially in the field of foreign policy and balance of power. So he also emphasized on, say, independent foreign policy, and he also emphasized that balance of power it should prevail. Now, how you can maintain peace or what could be the determinants of peace? So here Woodrow Wilson believes that national self-determination or the right to national self-determination, it can help in maintaining peace. Open governments, it means that there should be no secret agreements. It can also help in maintaining peace. Government should be responsive to public opinion. Here you can also relate it to democracies or democratic systems. It can also help in maintaining peace because if the rulers they remain accountable to the people, then they have to justify each and every action or each and every decision that they take. And the last one is collective security. So collectively all the countries should take this responsibility to maintain peace and to deter or punish anyone whosoever break this general consensus regarding peace and stability. Third image is regarding the structure of the system or the structure of international system. Here the public figure that is associated with it is J.A. Hobson in early 20th century. According to J.A. Hobson, the causes of conflict is like when the balance of power get broken, when it's shattered or when it get disbalanced. And the possible determinants of peace are a world government with powers to mediate and enforce decisions. A common thread when we look at the views and opinions of all the liberal scholars from Rousseau, Kant and Cobden to Schumpeter and Doyle is that war were created by militaristic, undemocratic governments for their own vested interest. Wars were engineered by a warring class bent on extending their power and wealth through territorial conquest. So in a way, all these scholars, they believe that war is something which is not natural. War is artificial, war is created, And certain people, they possess such kind of characteristics that for their own interest they promote, propagate wars, and it leads to war. Another important thing is that liberal scholars, they highlighted the spirit of commerce. During the 18th and 19th century, liberal scholars, they felt that the spirit of war and commerce, they are mutually incompatible. So either you can fight a war or you can develop good trading commercial relations. Many wars, although were fought by states to achieve their mercantilist goal. Now here there is a clarification that is given by E.H. Carr, and he said that the aim of mercantilism was not to promote the welfare of the community and its members, but to augment the power of the state. So here wealth can be seen as the source of power. Free trade, however, was a more peaceful means of achieving national wealth, because according to the theory of comparative advantage, each economy would be materially better off if it had been pursuing nationalism and self-sufficiency. So it is in the interest of all the state that they should cooperate in the field of trade, they should focus on mutual gains, they should collaborate with each other. Liberal scholars also believe that free trade would extend the range of contexts and level of understanding between the peoples of the world and encourage international friendship and understanding. According to Kant, unhindered commerce between the peoples of the world would unite them in a common peaceful enterprise. So here Kant is endorsing, he's highlighting the importance of the spirit of commerce, that how it can unite people and help in maintaining peace. Similarly, Ricardo believed that free trade bind together by one common tie of interest and intercourse the universal society of nations throughout the civilized world. Conflicts, they are often caused by states erecting barriers which distorted and concealed the natural harmony of interest commonly shared by individuals across the world. The possible solution to the problem, as argued by Adam Smith and Thomas Paine, is it was the free trade movement of commodities, capital, and labor. If commerce were permitted to act to universal extent, it is capable, it would extirpate the system of war and produce a revolution in the uncivilized state of governments. Other scholars like John Stuart Mills, they have also endorsed this idea that free trade can be seen as a means that can bring an end to war. And he said that it is commerce which is rapidly rendering war obsolete by strengthening and multiplying the personal interest which act in natural opposition to it. So these are like some of the views of liberal scholars, that how the spirit of commerce, it can help in maintaining peace and prevent wars. Thank you.